So today I want to talk a little bit about this concept of high vibration, low vibration, frequencies, and bands of perception. Because we hear about that a lot in the spiritual world. People walk around, especially in the excuse me, in New Age circles, they'll talk about, oh, I gotta be high vibe, gotta be super high vibe. So what does that mean? We are, our mind, our body, it's very much like a two-way radio where we have information coming in, we have information going out. And just like a radio, we can tune to different frequencies. So we could tune into, like if we had, a radio in our car, we might be able to tune into AM radio, might be able to tune into FM. If we have Sirius, we can get satellite radio. If our car is on the newer side, we can even hook into our phone and get Bluetooth. So we have all these different frequencies that we can tune into. And the same is true with how we interact in the relative world, is there's different frequencies that we can connect with. And then within these frequencies, there's different vibrations. There's high vibrations and there's lower vibrations. And like I said, in some of the New Age circles, there's this misconception that high vibration is somehow better. It's not. It's just different. There's a way you can think about high vibration and low vibration in terms of high vibration would be expansion, low vibration is contraction. You need both in order to function at any frequency. So if you're tuning into, like I have 2 kittens, so it's like I try to tune into the cat frequency and try to bond with them. So I become, get into the toys and try to figure out what's going to make them have fun and be comfortable. And in that world, in the cat world, there's the expansiveness of just play and running around, the cat toy on the string, and they just run around everywhere. And then there's a lower frequency of contraction, which is the much more focused on the food. They're just going to go, and that's all they're interested in. So sometimes we play the treat game, throw the treat. Once in a while, we do hand feeding, but you got to be careful. One of them's a biter. He feels it on your, smells it on your fingers. Try to nibble. So really, that's all that means, this high vibration and low vibration, if we think of it as expansion and contraction. Now people, like I said, get this misconception of like, oh, we just need to be high vibe. We just need to be up all the time. And if you are continually in this state of expansion, it can feel good because everything's very diffuse, right? You're just open, everything's just passing through. But when you try to do certain things, like eat, try to eat without closing your hand. You can't pick anything up. I guess you could do like this. Try to have some soup, but you're not going to get it to your mouth, right? You need to be able to contract. You need to come into a lower vibration that's more contracted and more specific. Now, this can be a problem. Low vibrations can be a problem if you stay stuck in that contracted state. If you're just walking around all day with your fists closed up, you got your fork, you're just walking around, and then it's time to type something on the computer and you can't because you're all contracted. You can't use your phone because your hands are all contracted. You get so caught up in that one focal point that you miss everything else. So when we meditate, we're actually experiencing this range. We start off with concentration, right? We start off with just being very, very focused on that one point until we become perfectly still. And at that moment, we open. And the vibration switches from being very, very low, slow, focused to suddenly very high and open. So as we practice, as we become more aware of how these different states feel, what I found in my life, and what I found a lot of people have noticed too, is the higher vibration states where it's very expansive, they feel really good. There's a certain type of ease that happens there, which I think is why this New Age phenomenon, everybody wants to be high vibe, because you're just kind of up in the air, and it's not bad to be up in the air and completely open and floating around, but it's not always functional. It can make you very difficult to actually hold down a job, for example. It can make it very difficult to make practical decisions about how to take care of your body, how to help others, because you're just in the, oh, everything's beautiful and everything's open, and yes, everything is beautiful, but sometimes we need to slow down and become very, very contracted and focused in order to achieve a goal. And so part of our practice is discovering this flexibility of being able to move from high to low, low to high, as needed. And on top of that, being able to switch frequencies. So I was talking about we can have the frequency of the cat world, and then there's a certain frequency of the meditation hall. There's a certain band of perception that we tune into. We tune into a different frequency when we're driving our car, because that requires a different level of perception to keep us safe. And sometimes we can be in that very high vibration part of that frequency. Maybe there's no traffic and we're just flowing along and we're just enjoying the sensation of driving. And then we hit traffic, and we need to focus a lot more clearly, because we don't know if the car next to us is going to swerve into our lane. We don't know if the person in front of us is going to suddenly stop on their brakes, or somebody's going to cut us off. So we become more concentrated. I think people get caught up in trying to always be high vibe, because most people have spent most of their life in a lower state of vibration, very concentrated, very tense, very focused on just themselves and their needs. And to use the car example, you're just in the car and it's all about you, it's your lane, and you're just gonna push your way through to where you need to be, and you're not really concerned with anyone else. So this is just a little different way of talking about it than it is often spoken of, because I want to break down this attachment to always being high vibe. I think it's important to cultivate both and be able to move freely through them. And more importantly, to be aware of where you are in a particular moment. Because, as we've discussed many times, life is transitory, it's changing all the time. You're changing all the time. So if you become fixated in striving to be a certain way, you run into suffering. But if you can kind of relax that clinging, relax that grip, and allow yourself and your being to adjust to the situation, to the causes and conditions as they're arising, without fighting against them so hard, then we see, oh, if I become, a little slower, a little more focused, a little more concentrated, I can move through this energy like this. Or, here I'm hitting this big wall, maybe I just need to become very expansive and very much more diffuse, softer. And then different options open up when we view it that way. The ability to shift like this is what allows us to move through these different bands of perception. So we can move from the perception of being the best driver possible. We can be the best meditation student possible. We can be, the cat whisperer. Or we can tune into the band of perception to walk down the sidewalk that's crowded and people are all jostling against each other, and be able to move down that sidewalk without even being touched. There's a certain band of perception that allows us to do that. I remember the first time I went to New York City, I had an interview, and I had to walk from Grand Central Station and find the office where I had the interview. And it was during rush hour, so I got off the train, it was very crowded, and then I stepped on the sidewalk, and it's just this ocean, like a river of people, just, and I stepped out, and I immediately got smacked against the wall. It was like, I couldn't do it. I was just like, I had a moment of freaking out. I had my little briefcase, and this river of people are all just going. I'm like, how do I do this? And I had to concentrate my mind. I had to go into that lower vibration of concentration, of condensing. And then I looked, and I was able to see the holes. I was able to see the space in between all these people rushing to their offices in both directions. It's not like, some cities where everybody walks on one side, go in one direction, everybody walks on the other side, go in the other. These are just people, pushing their way, using their power to just be like, I'm here, get out of my way. And then I didn't know about the whole grates on the sidewalk, so I got my little high heels on. But because I was able to shift my vibration, because I had initially started in this very wide, expansive, wide-eyed, like, oh, I'm so excited, wow, just taking it all in, to getting smacked against the side of the building. And going into that lower vibration, more concentrated state, I was able to see the holes in between the people, and then just step into the stream of people and navigate to where I needed to be. So being able to shift like that, being able to move your perception, is the essence of power. So there's some people that can take that ability and concentrate it real hard into their navel center and then just use it to clobber other people. And we see that happen a lot. But it's very draining because you're expending a lot of energy in order to take all that power and use that level of concentration to just force your way through things. But there's a more sophisticated way to do it. And that is what I'm trying to point to, is adjusting your vibration. First tuning into the proper frequency, and then adjusting your vibration to achieve what it is you want to achieve. And when we approach it from that direction, what other people are doing no longer matters. It's not about controlling the environment. It's not about controlling other people. It's simply about adjusting your being for the most beneficial outcome. Does that make sense to you guys? Kind of picking up what I'm laying down. I know it's kind of a roundabout way to talk about it. But like I said, I'm trying to overcome some misconceptions that happen. Now, most of us have been trained in this use of power where we just see what we want to have happen and just plow our way through. We're like, nope, I want you to do this. And we just push everything out. And men do it, women do it, we all do it. This is just part of our social conditioning, is we want to get our way and we'll just, run over anybody that's in our way. But as I said, it's very energy draining when we do that. And we eventually run into somebody who's on a different trajectory and they want a different outcome, and if they have more power, then you're going to get run over and they're going to get what they want done, and then you'll have to recover from that. So part of breaking that cycle is becoming aware of it. So really start to notice when you're in a situation where you feel like you have to push from your navel center. Like a lot of times it manifests as frustration or anger, where you're just like, no, I want you to do this. And sometimes we direct it at ourselves, which is really kind of weird. Like, no, I want to do this. And it's that element of force that I want you to start to be more and more aware of. And notice how much energy that's costing you? How does it feel when you play that out? So that's the first part, is just becoming aware of it. It's tempting to jump to the second part, but it's really, really important to just become aware of how it feels when you're being forceful, when you're trying to push your way through something. Whether you're trying to push yourself, or whether you're trying to push other people, or you're trying to push inanimate objects. Just become aware of how that feels. Don't try to change it at that point. Just let that awareness really soak into your being and notice the fallout from it. Sometimes you'll get your way. Sometimes it's like, oh yes, I was very powerful that day. I was able to just run over steamroll those people, or I was able to take that can and just crush it. And then notice some days it doesn't work out so well. Some days, you run into that brick wall, and now you've expended a whole lot of energy. You did not accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. Maybe you ran up to some opposition of somebody wanted something else to happen, and so they ran over you. They felt your force coming at them, and then they said, oh no, and then they just plowed you down. Again, notice all of this happening without judgment. Resist that temptation to say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I should have known better. Like I said, step one is just allowing yourself to become fully aware of what your participation in that activity is. Once you become aware of it, at that point, now you can try a different approach. At that point, you can start to do a little systems analysis of the situation. You feel yourself starting to push, and you just say, wait a minute, let me try a different approach. What am I trying to accomplish here? So let me tune into the frequency of one who accomplishes that. So it's somebody that already does that thing. So if you want to write a book, then you tune into the frequency of an author, somebody who's already done it. And then you go a one step deeper, a little bit deeper, and you say, okay, well, what is this particular situation within this band of perception calling for? Within this particular frequency? Is it calling for very high vibration expansiveness? Or do I need a lower vibration, concentrated, very precise focus? And attune to that. And then proceed and see how it works out. Again, paying attention without judgment. Noticing that urge to just kind of push your way through it. And then coming back to, okay, do I need to be really, really open, or do I need to be more concentrated? And allowing the actions to flow from that state. And don't take my word for it, but it will change your experience of life in a very dramatic way. Now, sometimes you'll run into people who are still being very, very forceful, or trying to push you into doing something. And those are great opportunities to practice shifting your vibration to what is needed. Because sometimes you just get really, really expansive, and they're trying to push, but there's nothing there for them to push. It's just like, the Aikido move, or something. They just keep sailing by. And then other times you need to be more concentrated, where you're able to take that force that they're pushing at you and guide it to a certain point. Not by pushing against it, but by working with it. So play with that, see what happens. Do you guys have any questions or thoughts? No? Okay. Well, we should meditate then. So